The November 18th, 2021 meeting of the Woodbridge Township Board of Education will please come to order. Roll call, Mr. Wolferman.
Ms. Anderson, Ms. Bourdain,
Here.
Mr. Delapietro,
Here.
Mr. Harris,
Here.
Mr. Sedana,
Here.
Mr. Velez,
Here.
and Ms. Anderson.
Here. Mr. Wolferman, as required by the Sunshine Law, please read the notice of meetings.
Thank you, Madam President. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, the Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted as follows. On January 11th, 2021, emailed to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Municipal Clerk's Office, posted in Ross Street School Number 11, and the Board of Education Administration Building, also published on the school district website.
Thank you. Mr. Velez, please read the closed session statement.
Thank you, Madam President. In compliance with the Sunshine Law, the board must go into closed session in order to discuss subjects exempted from the public portion of our meeting. Discussions to be held in closed session will be regarding personnel matters. Additionally, the board will receive attorney-client advice regarding the matter of Frost versus Praxair. Any information regarding the closed session discussion will be released to the public when the reasons for discussing these matters in closed session no longer exist.
I have a motion by Mr. Velez,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Sedana. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Please rise for the salute to the flag and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I have a motion to reconvene?
So motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Treebauser, seconded by Mr. Delapietro. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Roll call, Mr. Wolferman.
Ms. Bourdain,
Here.
Mr. Delapietro,
Here.
Mr. Harris,
Here.
Mr. Sedana,
Here.
Mr. Tamburello,
Here.
Mr. Treebwasser,
Here.
Mr. Velez,
Here.
Ms. Anderson.
Here. I'd like to welcome Mr. Pastorino here on the dais tonight as our new Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. At this time, I would like to introduce the President of Pomptonian Food Service, Mark Vidovich, and Vice President Candy Vidovich.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me to come and say hello and introduce myself. Pomptonian is very excited to have been selected by Woodbridge to run your food service operation, and we've been working very hard to make preparations for our first day. As part of our introduction, I have a video that talks a little about our company. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and my wife said they'd all rather watch a video than 1,000 words from me. So let's go to the videotape.
My mom and dad started Pomptonian Food Service in 1959. I remember my parents' dedication to bringing quality food to school lunches.
Our motto is to underpromise and overdeliver. Pomptonian's structure is very different than a lot of the other companies. Our people are food people. We handle a lot of the paperwork, our cafeteria operations in our back office, and allow our people to excel in the kitchen, making sure that they're proud of the menu items that they're producing each day. And this pride shows.
60% of students do not consume enough fruits and vegetables, and at Pomptonian, we are looking to bridge that gap. Pomptonian's Farm to Trade program is unique in the sense that each month we highlight one local fruit and one local vegetable from surrounding farms.
So we came up with the farm stand concept, which gives them a variety of fresh fruits and vegetables, and lots of studies have said that if you can choose what fresh fruit and vegetable you want to eat, you have a better chance of the children actually eating that.
Students have a variety of choices. Deli station, like Subway, the kids just love that type of concept. When you look at Whole Foods, Panera, Wegmans, and Chipotle, Pomptonian is trending with these kind of concepts, and the kids love it.
So we do everything from waffles to omelets. We do sushi promotions, and recently we just brought on street taco promotions along with doing ramen. The idea of being able to pick out their toppings, it actually helps kids try new things that they actually wouldn't have tried before, honestly. Next thing you know, they come back around and they're asking, when are you coming back? Are you coming back tomorrow? Are you coming back next week?
Pomptonian has decades of experience in fostering highly dedicated employees. Our people love the kids. Our people love working in the schools.
They can't wait to show the students their creation for that day and bring them into the cafeteria in a warm, welcoming environment. To ensure our leadership position, we're constantly training our people.
We want to make sure that our employees are using the best safety practices. Food safety is #1 for Pomptonian.
We customize our service to meet the individual needs of the communities we serve. Our award-winning menu design results in higher sales, and that leads to economic efficiency.
It's a very competitive field that we operate in, but when you take the time to service the customers and design menus that are appealing to the students and to the parents alike, we have been able to enjoy unprecedented customer retention. Pomptonian is very proud of the recognition and awards that we've received over the years. In fact, Pomptonian has the most nutrition awards in the state of New Jersey. One of the awards that we're the most proud of is for our invention of the farm stand.
Pomptonian Food Service is known for treating your kids just like they would treat their own kids.
We invest more in quality ingredients to bring the highest level of quality to our school food.
Village Fresh is a way to highlight recipes that meet strict nutrition guidelines, use wholesome ingredients, and incorporate scratch prep cooking.
Pomptonian has earned its reputation over the years by never resting on our laurels, whether they're a new customer or whether we've been serving them for over 50 years. Our commitment remains to meeting and exceeding the expectations of the students and their parents.
My mom and dad taught me that family comes first. We love the kids and we love the communities that we work in. We treat our employees, our students, and our parents as family.
Thank you. So that's a little about what our service looks like when we're not in a COVID environment, and the ultimate plan that we have here for Woodbridge. Pomptonian is a family-owned business. We serve over 100 school districts in New Jersey, and glad to welcome Woodbridge to the family of districts that we serve. One of the important things for us is going to be communication with the community and what our plans are as we go through the different phases. We're working on a communication right now that we plan to have out to the parents early next week, letting them know about our first week's menu. We're going to do 1 week at a time to make sure as we communicate with the parents, we're telling them what we've already got the products. We're dealing, as everyone is right now, with supply chain issues, so we already have the first week's menus ingredients in so that we can do that, and then we'll keep on expanding that as we move on. Another thing that we're very excited about is that we plan on featuring local pizzerias in our high school cafeterias on day 1, and we're making arrangements to see if we can also do that at the middle schools, and as soon as possible have local pizzas featured in the cafeterias every day. And the paper may have confused some parents when they put in lunch prices. All these meals are at no charge to the students for the entire 21-22 school year. We'll also be featuring boar's head, ham, Jennie-O turkey breast. We'll have vegan choices for the students, and we'll keep on expanding choices. We're going to start simple. We have met a lot of people. We've been doing meet and greets, which is introducing ourselves to the existing employees and asking them to please join us, and I think everyone's enthusiastic about it. And we did the same presentation. We told them we want them to serve only food that they're proud to serve to their own child, because a lot of them do have children right here in the community, so they were very excited about that. We'll also be doing a lot to seek community input. We'll be meeting with students in organized meetings. We'll be meeting with parents and parent groups. On that communication that's going to go out, we're going to give them the email address so parents can communicate with us. And we also send out principal report cards, get their input, say how are we doing, where are we excelling, and where do you need us to focus our energies on. We'll also be doing a lot of surveys and incorporating all that feedback into our future menu designs. I also want to take this time to thank the administration. This is a very quick turnaround, and they have been tremendous in giving us all the information that we need to make this transition successful, and we really appreciate that. And probably our #1 thing right now is recruiting, getting those existing staff members to join and find new people. So I asked one of our food service directors, Pete, to sport our new uniform, which is a "We Are Hiring" and a QR code in case any of you know someone that would like to apply right now. So we are looking for a lot of people and just very excited to get the job going and serving the community. And I'd like to thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you. I'd like to take a moment to commend Dr. Massimino and Mr. Wolferman for their hard work leading this expedited process to secure a new food vendor. This was not an easy task for such a district of our size, so great job.
Thank you.
I also wanted to thank the committee that came together to review all the RFPs. We really appreciated their time and dedication as well. Will someone make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meetings?
So motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Sedana.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Treebwasser. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Wolferman, please state for the record any notices of bids received by the board.
Madam President, none at this time.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Massimino, please introduce our student representative from Woodbridge High School, Jake Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam President. Jake Vasquez is a senior at Woodbridge High School. Jake is a dynamic student athlete that is currently ranked number 3 in the senior class. He is a senior class officer, president of the National Honor Society, member of the Spanish Honor Society, member of the Freshman Mentors, and captain of the golf team, to name a few of his commitments. Jake was awarded the 2020 Mayor's Award for Meritorious Community Service for spearheading the Woodbridge Cares initiative, which raised over $20,000 for local businesses and families in need. Jake plans to study mechanical and aerospace engineering in college next fall. Jake, welcome to our meeting, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Here's a list of ongoing activities happening at some of our schools. At Avenel Street School in 4 and 5, students recently participated in a Diwali food drive, celebrated the Week of Inclusion, signed the Anti-Racism Pledge, and participated in various activities for the Week of School Violence Awareness. A Veterans Day ceremony was held last week with multiple veterans assigned to the school, and the annual Halloween parade and trunk-or-treat events were held with great success. At Port Reading School 9, students participated in the Siwa Diwali food drive. The annual Halloween parade took place on October 28th, and Veterans Day festivities, including a visit from veteran Eugene Bernhardt, took place on November 12th. At Ross Street School 11, students celebrated Halloween with costumes and classroom activities. They also celebrated Veterans Day with a visit from Mr. Bernhardt and hosted the District Veterans Day Luncheon, where chorus students performed and all students saluted and thanked guests. Ross Street celebrated the Week of Inclusion, the Week of Respect, and School Violence Awareness Week with many activities. At Ford Avenue School 14, a Halloween parade was held on October 29th. Students participated in the virtual Ned Show during the month of October and purchased yo-yos, from which all proceeds were used to pay for another school's assembly through the Pay It Forward program. Grade level and cross-level social emotional learning activities have been done and will continue throughout the year. And Ford Avenue hosted a local veteran on November 12th, and students in grades 3 to 5 honored the veteran with a variety of patriotic songs and participated in a discussion. Both the Week of Respect and School Violence Awareness Week were recognized, and currently students are collecting food for the annual St. James Food Pantry Thanksgiving Food Drive. At Menlo Park Terrace, School 19, the school PTO sponsored a Halloween movie Under the Stars outside for all students and their families on October 28th. On October 29th, students participated in the annual Halloween parade and parties. Students also participated in the Diwali food drive and the Veterans Donation Drive. On November 12th, the school celebrated Veterans Day with a visit with a local veteran. Students are also currently collecting food for the annual St. James Food Pantry Thanksgiving Food Drive. At Lafayette Estates School 25, students participated in a variety of activities in recognition of the Week of Respect and School Violence Awareness Week. On October 15th, the school announced their Jets Upstander of the Month, who received 2 tickets to the Jets-Bengals football game on October 31st. On October 28th, the school kicked off its Positive Behavior Support in Schools program with an outside event reminding students how to be respectful, responsible, and kind. Grade level winners were recognized by spinning a wheel for rewards. On November 12th, Veterans Day activities were held, and the school was fortunate and thankful to have veterans Ted Evans and Gary Thompson speak to 3rd and 4th grade students. Students also participated in the community Diwali food drive. At Matthew Jago School 28, students participated in the Family Math Program, the Week of Inclusion, School Spirit Days on the 28th of each month, open house activities, a trunk or treat evening activity, Start Strong testing, Jeans Day for breast cancer fundraising, Jeans Day for our veterans, the Week of Respect, Hispanic Heritage Month, monthly Togetherness Tuesdays, a Veterans Day presentation of the school ceremony, along with a visit from Mr. Daniel Dunn from the Veterans Association, anti-racism activities culminating in a school pledge, Native American Heritage Month, Diwali food collection, in-person PTO board meetings, and virtual PACE parents meetings. At Avenel Middle School, students are celebrating American Education Week, focusing on the road to higher education. 4 students received National Junior Honor Society Outstanding Achievement Awards, including a $500 scholarship. New clubs at AMS include an esports club and a youth empowerment club, and staff and students participated in this year's Day of Dialogue. The Student Council continues to coordinate school-wide spirit events, and the school is continuing its involvement in the Sidekicks program, where students will work with elementary school students to provide mentoring services. The PTO held the school's first outdoor Halloween community trunk or treat event in October, and the school community honored our United States veterans by coordinating an interactive program for students last week. At Woodbridge High School, every English class is celebrating Indigenous People of America Heritage Month and American Education Week. During the week of November 8th, French teachers and students participated in French Week, consisting of activities such as Crepe Day, Bleu Blanc Rouge Day, an Eiffel Tower scavenger hunt, French music, famous French people being featured in the morning announcements, and decorating a second floor bulletin board. WHS student artwork is currently on display at the Woodbridge Center Mall and will remain there until the end of December. Spanish classes at WHS will be taking a field trip to Havana Central and Menlo Park Mall to experience Cuban cuisine, and the paella party will be coming to the school, presenting flamenco dancing and serving paella. Students in family and consumer sciences classes will have the opportunity to visit Walnut Hill Culinary School, and the annual student-faculty basketball game is being held tonight. Today, the Woodbridge Township Youth Council, sponsored by the Society for the Prevention of Teen Suicide, met at Colonia High School. On November 16th, JROTC students and students who have not satisfied a graduation requirement took the ASVAB exam, and the school's Ecology Club will be visiting Lawn Wood Garden on December 2nd. This concludes a list of some of our township school activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that great report, and welcome to our meeting.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to acknowledge and thank Dr. Lotman, the principal of Woodbridge High School, who's here to support his student. Dr. Massimino, please state for the record the superintendent's reports for the month of October 2021.
Madam President, I present the following monthly reports: student registers and fire drill report, suspension reports for elementary and secondary schools, bomb threat reports, and reports of the attendance officers.
Thank you. The public is invited to speak at the conclusion of each agenda. Comments at this time should be limited to the items on the agenda being presented. When you come to the microphone, please provide your name and the section of the township in which you reside. As per Regulation 1100D, comments must be limited to no more than 5 minutes. No response will be given until you have completed your opportunity to speak. Superintendent's agenda, Dr. Massimino, do you have any recommendations?
Madam President, I have 17 items to present to the board.
Do I have a motion for the superintendent's agenda?
So motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Sardana,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Treewasser. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public? Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
I will abstain on item number 10 in the name Marie Anderson, yes on all other items. Policy and Planning, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Madam President. The Policy and Planning Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, presents the following 3 items. I move the adoption of the foregoing.
I have a motion by Mr. Harris,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Delapietro. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public? Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes. Curriculum agenda, Mr. Treebwasser.
Thank you, Madam President. The Curriculum Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, presents the following 7 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
I have a motion by Mr. Treebwasser,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Delapietro. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public?
Yes, good evening. Tom Maris, Forge, New Jersey. In regard to the curriculum, point number 4, I'd just like to get a little clarification on that. The Board of Education approves the submission of amended funding application for Every Student Succeeds in the amount of $7,217,027. Exactly how does that work? You're asking for additional funding for a grant?
Is that the end of your questions?
Yes, it is.
Dr. Massimino? Mr. Wolferman?
Thank you, Madam President. It is not necessarily additional funds, it is just a reclassification of how the funds are being allocated.
So the total value hasn't changed, it's just a reclassification, if I'm understanding you correctly?
I'd have to double check, but it is possible that it's simply a reclassification. If it is state funding that is given to us, so there could be carryover amounts from previous years.
All right. We can talk about that separately, then I won't delay it. Thank you.
Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes. Finance and Insurance, Mr. Tamburello.
Thank you, Madam President. Finance and Insurance Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Business Administrator Board Secretary, presents the following 14 items. This evening, I move for the adoption of the foregoing 14 items.
I have a motion by Mr. Tamburello,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Delapietro. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
Madam President?
Mr.
I
Harris?
just wanted to jump in here quick, unexpected. Item number 14, I want to thank the administration. This was a surplus piece of property identified actually by a constituent, and after some work with the Department of Education, it's deemed surplus, and we were able to sell the piece of property for $135,000, and that's returned back to the budget, back to the taxpayer. So thank you to the administration for getting that done. That was about a year and a half in the making, so thank you very much.
Are there any comments or questions from the public? Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes. Athletics and Extracurricular Agenda, Mr. Harris.
Oh, all right, yes. The Athletics and Extracurricular Activity Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, present the following 2 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
I have a motion by Mr. Harris,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Treebwasser. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public? Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes. Buildings and Grounds Agenda, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Madam President. The Buildings and Grounds Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent and Business Administrator, present the following 2 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
I have a motion by Mr. Harris,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Tamburello. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
Madam President?
Mr. Harris.
This one's actually planned. The Buildings and Grounds Committee, I want to give special recognition to the entire department. Each summer, they do a number of projects. Ms. Anderson highlighted many of those projects in her monthly Colonia Corner newspaper column. Please take a look at that online. That's coloniacorner.net. If you look for the President's column, where Ms. Anderson enumerates many of those projects. And next month, we'll be highlighting the referendum update from the referendum 2017 and 2020. So thank you for your time, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the public? Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes. Transportation agenda, Mr. Delapietro.
Thank you, Madam President. The Transportation Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Business Administrator Board Secretary, present the following one item for the adoption of the foregoing.
I have a motion by Mr. Delapietro,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Treebwasser. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public? Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes. Equity Commission, Mr. Treebwasser.
Thank you, Madam President. The Equity Commission Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, presents the following one item. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
I have a motion by Mr. Treebwasser,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Delapietro. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public?
Again, Tom Maris, Forge, New Jersey. Yeah, I'd like a little further explanation of exactly what that does cover. It says that it is for district-wide diversity, equity, and inclusion, professional development not to exceed $17,250. What exactly is that, and how is it transcending the entire K through 12 school curriculum?
Is that your only question?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Dr. Massimino?
Mr. Maris, this is professional development training for our staff and our administration.
And that'll be, as you said, it'll go K through 12.
For
The
all
entire school district, I'm sorry, the training.
For all the teachers, yes.
Okay.
All teachers and administrators.
Thank you.
Roll call, Mr.
John Vertarek, Woodbridge proper. On the same question, are the all state school be taught same kind of a curriculum to teach our kids to the state, or just a Woodbridge by itself? Are the somebody else be taught same thing? Because what kind of a books or what kind of a curriculum do you have to teach them? I mean, you might be taught one thing, people, Elizabeth could be something else. And what I see, it's going to be nothing but chaos. And I'm speaking from experience. 60 years ago, where I came from, I went through it. And I know the outcome. We are dividing the people. We should wait until we find out what comes from the top, from the government. So the whole, probably not just New Jersey, the whole country marches to the same tempo, so same thing. Because we can have one individual specialize something, but most of us don't know what they're talking about it. And most of you don't, of course, don't know. But how could we take one individual and go guide our students, 14, 15,000 kids? What's his expertise or her expertise? So I just see kind of we're playing danger from doing something like that. Let's wait. Let's get from top down, from government, whoever it is, tell us what to do. Because we start something, and kids going to go to college, and one's going to say, we told this, other school district, we told that. And, kids fight. From my experience being a minority, and there was an occasion, in certain schools, there was the kids in the schools, they were from 2 different countries, 2 different religions, and they were always fighting. And the teachers didn't know why those kids are fighting, because they look alike. Well, they know the one was one country and one religion, the other was the other one. So we cannot do something different from other people. So I hope it's not a mistake by kind of adopting something in Woodbridge that might not go well for the rest of the people. So please be careful what you're doing. Thank you.
William Neville from Seawarn. I was just curious with the payment that we made, what kind of development and what was the teacher's training? Is it the way the curriculum should be taught or the teaching methods?
Is that the end of your question?
Excuse me?
Is that the end of your
Oh,
question?
I'm sorry, yes.
Mr. Ali, could you explain what the training was that the teachers received from the consultant?
Good evening. So the training facilitated by the consultant focuses on making sure that our teachers are adequately prepared to meet the demands of the legislation that was passed by the New Jersey legislature requiring instruction on diversity and inclusion.
What exactly does that entail? I'm just curious. I mean, that's a broad statement.
So, for example, I'm just going to read you specifically from the piece of legislation because this really was used to frame the professional development.
Okay.
So, the instruction, as mandated by Assembly Bill number 4454, states that in implementation of the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, instruction will highlight and promote diversity, including economic diversity, equity, inclusion, tolerance, and belonging. Encourage safe, welcoming, and inclusive environments for all students, regardless of race or ethnicity, and in addition to some other topics as well. So the training was really centered on ensuring that our teachers are well prepared to execute the curriculum whenever it is chosen in accordance with the mandate from the New Jersey legislature.
So this is going to be the way that it's taught? If they're teaching the teachers or just giving them a background on all of this DEI?
Definitely not focused on pedagogy in terms of the way that it is taught, no.
No, it's not?
No.
It's just informative then? Is that what it is?
So sir,
Excuse me?
he answered your question, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes. Personnel agenda, Mr. Tamburello.
Thank you, Madam President. Personnel Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, presents the following 32 items. This evening, I move for the adoption of the foregoing 32 items.
I have a motion by Mr. Tamburello,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Treebwasser. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public? Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
I abstain on item 17 in the name of Linda Treebwasser, and on item 26 in the name of Valerie Henderson. Yes on all other items.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes. Mr. Bush, do you have any recommendations?
None at this time, Madam President.
Is there any old business that should be brought to the attention of the board? Is there any new business that should be brought to the attention of the board?
Madam President?
Mr. Harris?
Just one item this evening. At the conclusion of the board meeting on the telecast for TV 35, I had requested, with the information provided by Ms. Baer, the list of the employers this school year who are graciously taking in our students in our RISE program, that's Reaching Individual Student Excellence. It's a program for students 18 to 21 who, through their IEPs, still are entitled to education. What these students typically do in their time, they learn workforce skills at the job sites. There's 19 employers. They learn the hard skills of their actual role that they're working in at one of these 19 employers, and then of course the soft skills such as punctuality, working as a team, and respect for customers and so on and so forth. So I just want to recognize those 19 employers. They do this on a voluntary basis, working with our district in Ms. Baer's office. I think they deserve special recognition through the telecast, and you all can view that after the meeting, or those watching from home, you'll see that. And I want to thank Bruno for putting that up. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
You're welcome.
Madam President?
Mrs. Treebwasser?
I just wanted to briefly set some expectations. We switched over to Pomptonian. I'd like to, as you did before, thank Dr. Massimino and Mr. Wolferman and actually the entire administration and the committee. But I am concerned that people are going to have the expectation that this new company is going to come in, snap their fingers, and everything's going to be perfect. And I don't think everybody really recognizes the true scope and the breadth of what's going to be undertaken in a very short period of time. So I ask the public to please be patient, that it's going to take us some time to get things up to speed. The administration made a very wise choice in hiring somebody to be a liaison who will have direct contact with the company and have a lot more interaction than what we had in the past. And I think that in the long term, that the district and our students will be served absolutely to the level that we all expect, at least I can speak for myself as a board member, that I expect that our kids get to eat on a regular basis. I also am troubled in the fact that there's a lot of misinformation that gets put out there, and unfortunately I think it's done strictly from a perspective inciting the public in an adversarial way against the Board of Education and the administration. I assure you, and again I can only speak for myself, but I would go out on a limb and say I don't think there's any board member that sits up here that is doing this for any other reason than we truly care about our community, and we absolutely want the best for our students and for our district. So with that said, just please be patient. If there are problems, please reach out to administration. Posting things on social media just to get people fired up is not going to get things resolved. But if you take your time and you speak professionally and appropriately to the administration or to the board, I am sure that everything will get resolved and be moving in the direction that we want. It's going to take baby steps. Chartwell's did not fail overnight. It took a long time. Unfortunately, the pandemic facilitated it and brought a lot of their weaknesses to light. I personally made a lot of phone calls about Pomptonian and some of the districts that they serve and heard a lot of positive things. So please give them an opportunity. Please communicate fairly and equitably with the administration, and I think the district will wind up with the results, and I think our students will get the service that they deserve. Thank you.
We will now open the meeting for public comment. When you come to the microphone, please provide your name and the section of the township in which you reside. As per Regulation 1100D, comments must be limited to no more than 5 minutes. No response will be given until you have completed your opportunity to speak.
Amber Jarrett, Woodbridge proper. I just have a couple questions from the last meeting and some follow-up questions about Pomptonian. At the last meeting, the board unanimously approved the negotiated contract with the WTEA. On the district website, the negotiations committee board members are listed as, I believe it's Mr. Sedana, Ms. Bourdain, and Mr. Tramorello, with Mr. Velez being an alternate. I'm just curious if those are the board members that participated in the negotiations this year, and if a board member did recuse themselves, at what point that was done. My second question is about the AP benefits and analysis. As I was looking over it again at home, just as a parent of a recent graduate, I think some of these numbers are pretty misleading. Most colleges do not give credit for a test score of a 3. That is technically passing, but the district used Rutgers as the tuition baseline, as the comparison, and Rutgers itself will not accept a test score of a 3. Neither will many of the schools that our students are applying to. I just know my student had many AP classes, including TCNJ, Ramapo. Places like Rowan will give you a free elective credit for that test score of a 3, but when we consider gen ed requirements for graduation and major requirements for graduation, it does not actually save a parent any money because we all know there aren't many free elective options just floating out there. So when you look at that and you take away those 222 test scores that are not likely actually to receive AP credit or college credit, then we're looking at a much smaller number. Only about a third of our students, a third of the test scores are actually going to receive college credit. So I was just curious if the district is looking into, I guess, why that is, that almost 2/3 of our students are not scoring high enough, or not students, I'm sorry, test scores are not high enough to actually receive that credit. I also would, again, caution if you're going to use the tuition rate of a school, it should probably be a school that actually is going to accept those test scores. The third thing is about Pomptonian. My district does use them, and I have had very positive experiences with them. My only concern is that my district is significantly smaller than Woodbridge, and I know the gentleman said that they serve 100 districts in New Jersey. I'm just curious if they serve ones of similar size to Woodbridge. And also, my district did not go into the free lunch for everyone program, so our students are paying and pre-ordering. So at the elementary level, they still have like 5 options a day for lunch, and I know that may look very different in Woodbridge considering it's significantly larger and students are not pre-ordering, so that would be a lot of food wasted. So I'm just curious about how many options kids would have. Will there be a hot lunch option in the elementary school at some point? I know he spoke about pizzerias. Yeah, and like I said, if you vetted, spoke to districts of a similar size. That's it.
So for your first question about the negotiations committee for the board, yes, those are the members of the negotiations committee.
So Ms. Bourdain participated in the negotiations until the vote?
That's the member of the negotiations committee.
While she formally received a WTEA endorsement?
No,
I'm just asking a question.
Yeah, I mean, we're really careful about conflicts with this board.
Okay.
And from time to time, conflicts arise. There's no conflict of interest in anything any board member did.
Dr. Massimino, do you want to take the AP analysis, benefit analysis? Sure.
So the AP analysis came from the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, who is no longer with our district. So the AP numbers are one of many things that we'll be looking at now that Mr. Pastorino is on board. So being that it's in his second, third week of the many challenges he's tackling, that is one of the areas that we want to take a good, long, hard look at. Obviously, coming out of the pandemic, I think scores across the state were down. It's certainly not an excuse. It's something that we need to make sure we take a good, long, hard look at. But it is one of those areas that I am confident Mr. Pastorino and the rest of the administration with support will take a good, long look at and see how we can improve that.
Mr. Wolferman, will we be having parent meetings for the cafeteria food service?
Madam President, we will be having parent meetings in the future. Pomptonian will have meetings with both parents and students in the future.
Okay. So you had a question about the hot lunch option?
Well, if there would be, or about how many options students would have. I know at Chartwell's it was like 2 a day or something like that. I wasn't sure. Because I know, like I said, at my district there's 5 options a day, but we pre-order, so I don't expect it to look like that in Woodbridge, but just curious.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Treebosser.
So typically the way it works is because the district is participating in the SSO, which is the special summer feeding option, that does not diminish the varieties that would be offered from one school district to another. It's going to take Pomptonian, that's why I set the expectation to get-go, is because it's going to take Pomptonian some time to develop their history so that they are able to better forecast.
Okay.
Once they have developed that history, they're going to be able to forecast within 2 to 3%. So if they're going to offer 2 meals, 3 meals, 5 meals, they're going to have a minimal amount of waste. Typically, when they do have waste, they usually donate those to local food pantries because the legislation had made some changes in with the rules, and now they are allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. So I don't really see the fact that the district that you work in is socioeconomically more advantaged than Woodbridge is.
I didn't mean to imply that. I just meant wasting food.
I'm just stating what the facts are. Woodbridge Township has schools that have, free and reduced price lunch meal eligible students that go up over 50% in some of our schools.
No, I realize
and that is just the fact of our community, but that doesn't mean that we as a community and certainly our administration are going to look to make sure that they get the exact same opportunities regardless of their economic status. The SSO, the reason, at least I can speak for myself, as I said before, was that we did it was because, as I'm sure you're aware, the amount of dollar difference between qualifying for free and reduced eligible meals and not can be as little as $1.
Yeah.
So our community recognized how struggling it is with what's going on in our economy for these people, and it may be 75% of our community instead of 40 or 50 in certain schools that are really in need. So we expect that Pomptonian is going to offer our students the same level of service that they offer in your district and that they offer in Metuchen and other districts.
Okay.
They don't do any districts that are as large as ours, but collectively, and they have a couple that have 73 and 8,000 students, and I think that gives them a fair ability to be able to navigate what we need in our district.
Okay.
So I think that the overall choice to choose Pomptonian will give us the flexibility and the commitment to excellence, because when they do work in a school district that is not as socioeconomically disadvantaged, they perform at a higher standard, because in some places people believe that because you have greater socioeconomics that you are less willing to accept mediocrity. We are equally as unwilling to accept mediocrity in our district as your district is where you work.
It's good to hear. My skepticism, honestly, was on the corporate side, not on the board side. I was as a company.
And that was one of the reasons, again, I can only speak for myself,
Yeah.
that I was fully supportive of Pomptonian, because I like their corporate structure. I like the way they have commitment, and the information that I got from other districts was they are outstanding to work with, they are extremely responsive, and extremely committed to serving the community. So as far as I'm concerned, the administration hit a home run with this.
I mean, like I said, my experiences have been positive, so I hope so.
Thank you, Madam President.
Mr. Harris?
Yeah, just for Ms. Jarrett, I had a similar question on size. Could they handle scope? Mr. Wolferman and I had spoken about that very question. Freehold Regional and Clifton, both two of the larger districts in the state of New Jersey that are over 10,000, similar in size to us, not quite as large, but but I don't want to say but. So they have demonstrated success with two large districts. So I had asked that. Thank you.
Mr. Wolferman?
Yes, Ms. Garrett, I just want to let you know, it was actually Parsippany Troy Hills.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And Freehold Regional. I did speak with Parsippany Troy Hills, who gave a glowing recommendation as well. And they're up around 10,000 plus.
Yeah,
So.
Thank you.
All right, David Pinkwitz, Island. Just one brief comment and then one question. First, I wanted to thank Mr. Ali. I spoke with him in the last month. I had some concerns that I just wanted to go over some things my family has experienced as a Jewish family in the district over the years. And I had a very good conversation with him. I was particularly impressed at one recent incident involving a staff member he was aware of before I spoke to him of it. So anyway, I just wanted to thank him for taking the time to speak with me. Then the other question I have is related to lunch. One of the reasons my daughter doesn't purchase lunch, besides she didn't like the Chartwell's food, is the distribution, how long it takes to distribute a lunch. And I'm speaking solely of Kennedy because I'm not aware of what the other schools are doing. But at least we have very short periods. I think there's like 20 minutes for each section to eat. So, I mean, at least this is from her perspective, and I don't think she's looking to go in the cafeteria each day to eat, brings her own lunch. But is there anything to be done to speed up the distribution? I think part of the problem is they're making sure every kid gets recorded so that no one gets a second lunch. And is there anything to be done? Because I think if it were faster, especially given the very short lunch periods, maybe more people would partake. And that's it.
Madam President, do you mind if I?
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Treehouse.
So, Mr. Pinkowitz, typically what Pomptonian's history and what they do normally is they offer hot meals, they offer stations, and they offer grab and go. So there will be a bunch of different varieties and different methods of service, but typically they're going to get everybody through the line in less than 12 minutes if they're properly staffed. And as you heard, he's trying very hard to make sure that his company is fully staffed for us. But there are always different options. So you may have prepackaged salads, prepackaged sandwiches, things like a vegan option would be hummus with pita and vegetables, and that would be prepackaged so they can come in, get what they need to get, and get out of there quickly.
Thank you.
Good evening, Tom Maris, Forge, New Jersey. Just like to take a moment to acknowledge all of the candidates that ran for the Board of Education this past time and to congratulate the winners. I'd also like to congratulate Amber Jarrett, who's here this evening, and myself as well. Between she and I, we probably had somewhere around 16,000 votes, which speaks to the the community, and I recognize the tremendous amount of votes the winning team did get. But the point is that we're all here because we're trying to live up to the expectations of the people that voted for us. And I know that you will, and I'm sure she will. I'm glad to see her here tonight, and I'm sure she'll continue, as I will, to try and represent those interests. My questions tonight center around, well, DEI is going to be one of them. But on the Pomptonia, what's the cost differential between the old supplier, Chartwell, and Pomptonia on a cost per student basis? That's one question. I think you said you had somebody else now in charge of the oversight of the new cafeteria supplier. But if memory serves, you had somebody in the administration prior to that who was also in charge of transportation. Is that person no longer in charge of the cafeteria service and just totally dedicated to transportation? That's two of the questions. A question for Dr. Ali. He brought it up before about the New Jersey State Bill 4454. Has this administration received any definitive information, guidelines, or instructions about how they are supposed to construct the DEI curriculum? Or however you want to call it, equity, because I'll read something in a moment. Back in November, I had submitted a OPA request, and I was requesting the name and author of each publication the district has adopted as part of its DEI curriculum or is otherwise taught to students in the district, inclusive of all written and visual materials. The response I got back is that Dr. Kendall Alley, our supervisor, diversity, equity, and inclusion, has provided the following. It was our district's webpage. There is a discussion guide. I did try going to it. It was only able to open part of it. The rest, it will not project. And I've tried it off of laptops and other machines. So perhaps you could help me with that at some point in time, because I'd really like to read it, because it does reference going into our elementary schools, but then speaks also, my question then becomes, if it's only for elementary, how does it get into middle and high school as well? Another question I ask, the name of each teacher who is tasked with educating students on relative aspects of DEI and the subject or subjects which contain materials specifically related to DEI. The response was teachers across curriculums and grade levels are tasked with incorporating aspects of this instructions into lessons plans. The request would be required a creation of a document which OPRA does not require. Well, that may be. My question is, then how do you provide oversight to the community when we want to know who those teachers are and what they're teaching? Is that not a right of every parent and taxpayer within this community that's funding it to know exactly how that is done, whether it's an OPA requirement or not? And if it is not, explain why. At another time, I had asked the name and author of each publication the district has adopted as part of its DEI curriculum. I was told there is no DEI curriculum per se, therefore no responsive document exists. I asked for the name of each teacher who is tasked with DEI teaching and the subject the teacher is teaching, which includes DEI materials. Response, due to the response to item number 1, the request is mute. Here again, it denies the public, as far as I'm concerned, oversight of what you're doing, who's teaching, and how they're teaching. Please address those questions.
We'll start with we'll start with Pomptonian. Mr. Wolferman?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Maris, as far as your question about cost differential, Pomptonian is now on a fixed price basis, whereas Chartwell's was on a cost reimbursable basis, so we won't be able to predict that just yet. As far as Mr. Sinelli's position, he continues in the position that he was in. His position is to look at state regulations and oversee the entire program. Our new employee, the food service liaison, is going to be in charge of quality control on the ground, in the kitchens, making sure that the quality of the food is up to the standards that we expect.
You said you had issues with our district webpage. You wasn't able to download the information on our webpage?
I couldn't open it to read it. Dr. Ali, or Mr. Wolferman, had told me about it in his response, but I could not open it.
You couldn't open it? Okay.
Yeah, it's Woodbridge K through 12 U.S. Article number 5, 22988. You go, and it does pop up with Dr. or Mr. Ali's commentary, but then you can't open the link beyond that to see what it really entails. And I've tried it 3 or 4 times now on different machines. So I don't know if there's something wrong, or I'm just not it tells me it's going there, and it doesn't open.
All right, we'll take a look at that, and we'll have Peggy get back to you with that information since
Thank
you weren't
you.
able to open it on our website.
Because I'm sure it is informative, and that's why I would like to, and I'm assuming anybody else in the town that's concerned would like to as well.
Absolutely, that's why it's on the web. That's why it's on the web page. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The other questions?
Oh, Mr. Ali.
DEI is, in terms of how DEI is integrated into our curriculum, it was stated before that it's not one particular handbook that's being used to ensure that we address the state mandate. We want to make sure that regardless of if it's English, math, social studies, the contributions of all individuals, no matter the background, are included in the education of our children so that we can see how everybody has made a contribution to society as a whole. So it's not a matter of one teacher or 2 teachers or 3 teachers who are addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion. In order to really create an inclusive experience for our students, it's really incumbent upon us that all of our teachers are moving in the same direction and recognizing the contributions of all in all content areas.
Again, I would say that's broad-based, and then we're trying to get into the weeds, so to speak, or at least I'm trying to, as to what is actually in those curriculums, who the authors are, where they're coming from. Does any of it get into other areas of the country where we've heard horrendous reports, and it's all over the news about certain school districts combating DEI, or CRT, if you will. And I understand they are separate entities. One's a college-level theory. DEI is what it's supposed to be, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mr. Maris?
But there are problems. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
So there's a lot of like hyper-technical evaluation of this DEI and exactly what's being taught, and what you're suggesting is some sort of like oversight role that taxpayers have over curriculum. That's just not accurate. The state of New Jersey operates with this concept in general of local, home rule, but it's really to some degree a farce. I mean, the district, like all other districts, whether they're large districts or small districts, there's over 600 of them in the state of New Jersey, and they all pretty much operate exactly the same way, pursuant to the way our school laws are set up. And so the idea that our district is doing anything different than other districts, I understand that there's this national discussion about, this supposed CRT and in New Jersey, DEI and everything else, but everyone has to teach the same fundamental concepts in New Jersey, no matter where the district is. Other states have different rules, but here in New Jersey, if you're here, if you're in Sussex County, if you're in Cape May, everyone learns the same thing. And here in Woodbridge, the board has a more sophisticated system, in large part because it's a huge district, for the same reason that you're, inquiring about Pomptonian, and others have inquired about the difference in smaller district versus larger district. So that's all. At the end of the day, we're just doing what we're required to do by state law, and we'll continue to do that.
Well, I appreciate your answer, and my question was, has the state formalized 4454 and given you the exact instructions, or I believe you're still pretty much, if you will, winging it as a guideline and putting together something that you hope? Because as far as I know, they have not issued anything.
This is a school district. We don't wing things here.
Oh, well, then how are you doing it if the state, answer the question if you would, has the state given you a definitive curriculum to follow?
No.
Okay. Then how are you going about meeting the state mandate to follow a curriculum that they have not given you?
Mr. Maris, if I may. The state, I spoke with the Commissioner of Education on Monday and asked this very question. When did she think the state would be posting resources? And obviously this was a big task, and there's been a lot of movement at the state DOE, and she was more than accommodating in answering all my questions. She said she was hopeful that the resources would be posted soon. So I think the part that I struggle with, especially since we've met in my conference room in the administration building where I invited you in, and we spoke about this, and you spoke to me about times you had been out of the country and experienced being harassed or intimidated or not being treated appropriately because of your race. And I would like to ask you this question. Do you feel like that's still the same case? Do you feel like if you went to the same places now that you had gone prior, that you would be treated the same?
I would say some may be better, some would be worse.
Okay, why do you think some would be
countries
better?
I might be. Well, throughout the Middle East, it's always a.
Where it got better, why do you think it would be better, sir? I'm just
sorry?
curious. Why do you think it would be better in certain places?
No, Japan has outstanding education.
Here's my question. My question for you is, why do you believe some places would be treating you better than they had previously?
Oh, I think I get your point now. Because they evolve, or devolve, as the case may be.
Okay.
And, again, I would have to go, I can't give you a broad base. I would be country by country in the regions.
Understood. So if you give an example and base it on their education, I would say the same would be true here, right? The idea is for all of our students to see themselves in the curriculum, see themselves in their education, because that fosters a higher quality education. And I think we can all agree that the more tolerant people are and the more understanding and the different perspectives they understand, then the better we could probably exist as a society.
Well, I think in our meetings.
So that's what we're looking to do. Hence
I made that quite clear. I'm all very much a proponent of that, and I want to see it.
So I would say the reason why we're training teachers is so that they have the ability to have the necessary dialogue that is mandated by the state.
Right.
Now, if the state hasn't rolled anything out, when you're saying a state mandate, my question is, who from the state is going to come to Woodbridge and say, you're not doing our mandate, but we haven't posted any resources? I don't think that's the dialogue. I think the dialogue is, here's the legislation. This is what we'd like schools to do. Every school has to do it, as Mr. Bush said. I think Mr. Ali has done a very good job in terms of ensuring that our teachers are equipped. When we have, just as an example, when we have advanced placement teachers, they go to an AP seminar because that advanced placement instruction may be a little bit different than the way they learn to teach in college. So there are items that come out where it facilitates more training so that teacher is most efficient in delivering that content. And that's what we're, like I said to you in July, and I'll say it to you again, we're moving very slowly and deliberately to make sure, one, our teachers are properly trained with good professional development, and when the state does roll out those resources, we'll be sure to utilize them and follow the same process we have for any other addition or addendum to a curriculum.
To be clear, I understand the problem that you're faced. I very much appreciate what you're doing. I think you're doing it with good heart and good soul. Every member here. I'm not questioning your integrity, and I don't mean to if it came across that way. I'm not. I'm just talking about parental oversight because there are a lot of concerned parents out there about what's really going in. And that component that you're talking about is, yes, the state will mandate this, that, or whatever they may do or may not do. But ultimately, it gets down to who is teaching it and how they are teaching it. And that's where the part of the oversight comes in. And I think that's even a bigger part of the concern. If the parents know what's supposed to be taught, the next question is, how is it being taught? And perhaps you might want to think about an adjunct committee to work with your committee on equity that could be maybe constructed of 5 outside individuals, the same way you have with the cafeteria, so that they might have some oversight and report back to the PTOs or whoever else might do it. Just food for thought. And thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John Vertarich, Woodbridge. I just wanted to continue what's called the catering people. I know people that work in the Watchung Central, and for years retired teachers, and we have people. Nothing but a good news about them. They are high-end class of people. Question is, that's the right decision, I believe, and because anybody else, because they may be smaller than Woodbridge it is, but again, they can do it because they do it for the other schools. But the question might be with Strackman, not every school or every area got the same, what you call the ethnic people like we do. We know something is to travel airlines. Not all the people can eat the same food. In case of Woodbridge, I know there's a lot of people from different countries, different states, different religions, what do you call it, and they different kids, they cannot eat food, what pizzas or what you want to call it. They will be able to get the choice of the food because of the religion, what they can eat or not eat. Is there the option for that? That's what we want to question. But let's go to the DEI. And Mr. Bush said over there, this is a state mandatory law. New Jersey law. We all know this is a very liberal state. But the rest of the country, there's a lot of states that are not liberal states. They're red states. You teach our kids one way, and those kids can go Notre Dame or any other states in the universities. They're going to be the other students from different states. It's going to be a friction. They might be taught two different things. I think there should be universal law to study, just like a curriculum or a basics study for all the people in the country. I came last meeting, asked two questions. What Vladimir Lenin said, what Adolf Hitler said, and then I brought this book over here. It's a beautiful book. It'll be published in the schools over the world and American students. Except this book, nobody caught up on it except one person. For the kids in the kindergarten to color the book. And one person saw something in the book that opened their eyes. It's a one-star flag. It says over here, NASA, United States of Earth, Discovery, which is American Space Shuttle. It doesn't say United States of America, it's the United States of Earth. Boyanka means coloring, Swimmer means all peace. But again, Dr. Massimino said, look, the book is, what's this? And in the book is an astronaut, and I believe it's Chinese, because to me, I don't want to be prejudiced, but again, and it's holding the flag with one star on it. And I believe Dr. Massimino said, so what kind of flag is it? I said, I don't think it's Texas. It's a Chinese flag. That person took it away from the schools because that's a message. Remember what Hitler said? Remember what let's face it. You are dividing the people. You're dividing the future people. Who do we know who will print those books? If the books are printed, it should be to the whole United States, not just for New Jersey. To the whole world for American people. We talk about young kids. Next to parents, the most influential people are teachers. So if the teacher's going to teach them one thing in New Jersey, and the teacher in Wisconsin or something is going to teach them something else, and when those kids meet, could be in army, could be any place, could be in space, they be taught different ways. So let's get a national law, same books if you got our basic books, and they teach like the Bible, so to speak. Make sure it's the same thing taught in New Jersey or Wisconsin or vice versa, where you want to do it again. Please, think about future. It's our kids. They believe anything you tell them. And they're not going to, they're going to fight their parents because parents go to one thing, my teacher said this and that. So let's think it. Never mind what New Jersey said, never mind other states. This is kind of prematurely, I think that we are jumping into something that's not our business to do. Teach them the basics. Never mind the religion, never mind the respect. They should be taught that before they go to school, which they are.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Any answers?
I heard your comment. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there a question in there? Bill Neville from Seawarn. I'm just curious on the, you mentioned that we're going to have a liaison between the Pomponian and the school district. Is that, what's the person's background going to be? What are we going to be observing? Is it the food quality? Is it the way it's done? Also, does the district belong to the National School Board Association? And if we do, what do we get out of that, and how much does it cost in light of the things that were said about in the paper, in the newspaper, and the news media. And with the equity, again, it's confusing, I think, for most people that there is no curricula, okay? But I guess it gets down to the development of the teachers and how they're going to work this diversity, equity, inclusion in the subjects or in the classroom instruction. So I think the teaching method is an important aspect of that. It's going to be like a group discussion, or is it going to be, I don't know how you would do it other than that. I mean, I'm just curious how you're going to meld these things in, and that's what my point's been trying to get to. Since there's no, strict curriculum of, diversity, or DEI course, or whatever you're calling it, okay? I'm just curious if there's any explanation for how that's going to be done, how the teaching methods, or as you said, the pedagogy is going to go. I'm done.
Mr. Wolferman, can you talk about the liaison, our food service liaison?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. The food service liaison has 30 years of experience in food service as cafeteria manager, working for private companies, working in school districts, and her role will be to ensure that the quality of the food that's being served is being met up to temperature, up to quality. And your second question of the national school boards being part of the New Jersey school boards puts us into the national school boards as well.
So the state belongs to the National School Board?
We belong to the New Jersey school boards, which therefore makes us part of the national.
So they're part of that, okay. And getting back to the individual, you've already hired them?
Yes, that was done last month. They're starting December 1st.
Okay.
I just want to make sure everybody knows, thank you, Madam President, that the school, every school, similar to what I was telling Mr. Maris before, every single school district in the state of New Jersey is required by law to be members of the New Jersey School Boards Association, which makes it, as described by Mr. Wolferman, a member of the National School Boards Association.
What do we get out of that? I'm just curious.
Lots. Training for board members. There's opportunities in October every year. They have the school board convention where they teach board members how to be better board members, how to work with one another, how to do things like help with diversity and inclusion in school districts, how some districts built laboratories and how you share that with other districts. It's actually incredibly valuable to school districts around the state.
Okay. Well, do you agree with the things that have been said about domestic terrorism for people coming to a meeting?
I think that's a political issue. This is a school district issue, and we don't do politics in the school district.
Since they've brought it up, I thought it would be part of
and I
concern.
think I've only loosely followed that debate, but that's not something that we discuss here. I mean, that's not something that happens here. That was I think the National School Boards Association president apologized for something that happened, but that doesn't reach. We're trying to run schools here. We don't get involved in that stuff.
Okay. And again, with the food person, I was just wondering if you said they have a background in that? They're 30 years of cafeteria work? Okay. So then again, I asked a question about the teaching methods that's going to be used for the DEI when we get the subjects. Again, it's confusing that we don't have a curriculum or a way of what we're going to be doing, but yet we're training the teachers how to present it. So I'm just curious what the methodology we're going to go through.
Teaching strategies are teaching strategies. So whether I'm teaching calculus or I'm teaching language arts, I could do whole group instruction, I could do small group, I could do a variety of pedagogical manners. So I would say it's the same. Regardless of content, teaching strategies are teaching strategies. So the training isn't talking about this is, you have to do a whole group lecture, you have to do a small group activity. That's not the purpose of the PD. The purpose of the PD is to make sure that teachers are equipped to have the dialogue that they're invariably going to have when students ask questions. So it's not about telling them this is how you have to teach this or you have to do that. Quite the opposite. It's just resources that they can put in their teacher's toolbox. And then as the curriculum does get presented to us and resources get presented to us, then we'll utilize our resources and our teaching strategies the way we would with any content.
So the teacher could teach however they want to do it based on what's presented to them at the time?
Within reason.
Well, within, I would say it's all within reason.
Yeah, a teacher that teaches something that's, not factual or based in, that is teaching something that would be considered, for example, a conspiracy theory, that would be a problem. But we don't limit the way teachers teach because there's a reason you hire them, and that's to use their own individual style to break through to kids, to make them the best they possibly can be and prepare them for the real world.
Well, the whole objective is for the children's benefit.
What's that?
The whole objective is for the children's benefit.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
And I think that's, if there's a theme for some of the conversation that we're having tonight, it's just that, we do whatever we can to try to, and I leave it to the educators, but from a legal standpoint, we just have to teach children. And this district, frankly, does that very, very well.
Well, as confusing it is to you to explain it to us, it's confusing for people on this side too, and we're the taxpayers, so that just
Understood.
curiosity, again, with it being so vague and broad is what confuses people. I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
I understand, and I think there's been considerable latitude compared to the other meetings, just perhaps because of that. I think the president has and we haven't discussed this because we're listening to you, but I think there's been considerable latitude of this meeting because of that. I think there's been
Yes.
some discussion
Right,
and
I think-
dialogue, and we hope you have heard what we had to say tonight. We certainly heard what you guys had to say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Mr. Tamburello?
Thank you, Madam President. If nobody else is speaking, I asked the board president to allow me a few minutes this evening. As some may know, I am winding down my time and tenure on the board, so I wanted to start saying a few thank yous this evening, and God willing, I may say a few more next month, again with the board's indulgence. And I wanted to go back to the beginning of when I got into this business of local education and running for elected office, and let you guys in on a little insight before I say a couple of thank yous to some of the men that really were responsible for me getting into public service. And I going through some old journals, and the reason why I started writing journals was because of this one particular meeting. It was 2003, so I've been in this almost 20 years plus. And it was a February, and it was a Sunday, so back then politics were 365 days a year. And it was at a kitchen table in Island where a group of folks were trying to put a team together to run for a mayoral race in town. And there was saw something in me that said that I could be part of that team and thought I may have something to offer the community. And so they asked me to come aboard and join the team and be part of what they were trying to build here in Woodbridge. So that was a couple of men that really molded me and guided me at the beginning that I wanted to reach out to. Unfortunately, two of those gentlemen have passed away, but I know their families are still in town, and I know they follow proceedings in town. So I want to say, from that meeting and from all the years thereafter, just the tutoring, the mentoring, the trust and faith that they had in me got me into, again, community service, elected office, and the three men there, former Mayor Joe DiMarino, former Mayor Phil Syria, and of course the great councilman from Port Reading, former freeholder Vinnie Martino. Just wanted to say a personal thank you to them. I wanted to, again, start at the beginning of my career and let folks know how I got into this and why I got into it. And it's those three gentlemen that really maybe saw something in me that I had something to offer. And almost 20 years later, here I am. I think I've been a good public servant, and I'm not going anywhere, but it is my time to step aside and attend to some personal things, business and career related. So I wanted to thank those three gentlemen. And fast forward now, one more minute. I want to fast forward to 2008, 2009. Mayor McCormick won his first election for mayor in town. And I remember a meeting directly after he and I, he may not remember it, but I told him, Mayor, I found out what I want to be when I grow up, and I want to run for the school board. And he was very supportive, thought it was a great idea, helped me in that first election, and helped me ever since. And I couldn't have done all of these great things in this township without him. Certainly I appreciate his friendship and again, the faith and the trust that he had in me to support me for public office, and all of those years ago. And that's that's what I wanted to say tonight was those four gentlemen, looking back, really had a lot of impact on me. And again, appreciate their trust and their friendship. And I just wanted to say thank you to them this evening for helping me get here to where I, have been allowed this great opportunity to serve this district for 12 years. So it's a long time. So thank you, gentlemen. And again, next month, I hope to have a few more names to thank. I can never thank everyone. I'm going to try, and thank you for a few minutes of your time, and I will cede back to you, Madam President. Thank you.
You're welcome. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Streetwasher.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Bourdain. All in favor?
All right.
Motion carried.